Hi guys, just wanted to make another video for you on the tech project for chapter 2. This would be for problem number 2 where you're entering in the battery durations for the portable DVD players. I'm not going to use those exact numbers because I don't want to give you the answers here. So this is problem number 64 from version the 5th edition of the book, and this problem is about egg weights, but I'm going to go ahead and just show you some stuff that I think applies to what you're doing with the battery durations. So first of all, you just got to type all the numbers in one at a time. They're kind of messy, no real shortcuts to that. Make sure you put a title on the column after you're done that's appropriate, like durations. And all of the battery durations would go in one column. You wouldn't spread it out over several. If it's just one variable, it goes in just one column. Okay, so you've got that, and then you were asked to do a histogram. So that's a graph, and we would choose histogram, select egg weights in my case, durations in yours. You can leave most of this stuff blank. You're going to want to put in a starting class and a width, and you have to do a specific one there based on the classes you're asked for, and I'm going to let you kind of figure out what numbers to put, but I'll help you with that a little bit as we go through. Down further on where it says title, I would want you to give a title there to say the type of graph. So this is a histogram, and then what it is. Mine is of egg weights, yours is of durations, or battery durations, or DVD batteries, whatever you want to call it. And then put your name right there so that your name is showing up in lots of places in your report. And I'm going to just click compute, though you are going to have to fill in the start at and the width boxes. I'll come back to that in a moment. So I get a histogram here. If I don't fill in those boxes, it just makes choices on its own. So I want to kind of think about what choices it made. It looks like the first class goes from 2 to 2.05, and then from 2.05 to 2.1, and so on. So I'm going to show you how I would have set that up if I wanted those specific classes. So if the first class is going to start at 2, I would enter 2 for start at. And then if it goes to 2.05 and then 2.10 and then 2.15, the width on those classes appears to be 0.05. If you add this amount to the starting number, that should tell you where the bar is going to end, and that bar was ending at 2.05. So let me go ahead and click compute, and you'll see we start at 2, add 0.05, 2.05, add it again, 2.10 or 2.1, 2.15, 2.20, and so on. Let me show you some other changes just so you see what effect that has. If I were to change this to 2.10, then I'm making the bars twice as wide, so I'll get half the number of bars. So now starting at 2, and I made it width of 0.1, so adding 0.1, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, and so on. You have very specific classes that were laid out in the assignment that you need to do. So when you're done, think about where your bars start and end, and make sure that matches up with the classes that you were listed. I'll go ahead and change this back to what it was. Just 5 bars isn't really great, so I'll change this back to 0.05, and that'll double the number of bars. Alright, so there's ways to capture this in the options menu with copy, and you can follow the directions there. It works okay. Something that it changes from graph to graph how you do it, so something that might be a little simpler for you would be to use the snipping tool. By the way, you can reshape these a little bit. Obviously that'd be pretty terrible, but maybe just tweak it around till you find a version of that you like. And then I'm going to go into my search menu, which you won't be able to completely see over here, and I'm going to type snipping tool, and that pops up. And my screen should go gray here in a moment. Oh, no, this version of it I have to click on new. So I'll click on new snip. Most of the ones you do when you open snipping tool, it'll just kind of automatically gray the screen. So I'm going to click new. The screen goes gray. I do this mouse drag over the part that I want and release, and I've captured that. And I can go edit, copy, and minimize that or just get rid of it. Go to my Google Doc and do a Control V, and I've got my egg weights graph in there. Now notice I had labeled that 2D, and then here's the graph, and it's on a different page than the label. I think that's awkward when one page has the label and then there's nothing there. So I would just press enter a few times here to drive that 2D down to the next page. And then there's some other questions to answer, and then there's a dot plot to do. I can't remember for sure what the letter is on the dot plot. It might be E. Make sure you're labeling it as it's supposed to be. But let me show you how to make it. I'm going to go back to StatCrunch with this data. I could keep this graph up, or I could get rid of it. I want a new graph that's going to be a dot plot of egg weights. Nothing special that you need to do in here except for that I would like a title. So dot plot of egg weights by your name. I will be sad if I see yours and it says egg weights or actually the words your name. Make sure you adjust that for the project you're doing, and then go ahead and click compute. And if I look at this one, the first thing that catches my attention is this dot way over here by itself. So it's possible, because it's an outlier kind of off on its own, that maybe I've made a mistake with that. So if I do a mouse drag around that, it'll light up that value, and I could double check that against the book to make sure I didn't have a typo there. I believe this one is correct, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that coloring off by just clicking on the number 27, and that row will go away. If you have one way off on its own, mine's a little bit off on its own. If you have one way off on its own, it's almost certainly a typo error on your part. Make sure that you go double check that data and fix it if it's a typo. With dot plots, if you go farther to the left, the points will stack up more. If you go up, you'll get rid of some of that wasted white space. But as you do that, your title might become so small as to become unreadable. So try and reach a balance between shrinking this down and getting rid of white space together with making the titles still be readable. And again, options copy will probably provide some versions of which you can get this to your report. I like snipping tool, so I'm going to pull snipping tool back up. So this is that one we did a moment ago. I'm just going to click on new snip. The screen will go gray again. You can move this out of the way if it's over the top of part of your graph, and then do a quick drag. So that's my edit copy. Actually, it captures it. You got to do edit copy, and then back to my Google Doc and click in there and do a Control V to paste it. And again, I can't remember if that was E or F or what letter it was. Make sure yours matches, and then go on to answer the other questions. But there's a little bit of help with that. I guess another one that would probably be useful, I think it's part G. Again, you got some stuff in the middle to answer, but part G asks for a stem and leaf. Let me go back into StatCrunch and show you that. It's also a graph, so stem and leaf of egg weights. No title would show up on this, so they don't ask you for one. That's good. And I will click on compute, and it'll do a stem and leaf. I would again go with snipping tool as my method of capturing here. Is this snipping tool back here? Yes, it is. So I'll do a new snip, capture that, and edit copy. Over to my report, Control V to paste. Notice that's on a different row than the label, so press enter a few times to get those together. And then one of the things it asks to do is class descriptions. So I'm just going to do a class description here for you. I think this is part A or I, but double check your lettering. Don't just put an I because I typed an I, check to see what it really is. But there's a part that asks for your class descriptions. So in the standard stem and leaf, this would be the ones place and this would be the tens. So 20 tens would be 201. So that number would be like a 201. And then this would be like a 205, 208. So there's a temptation on my part to say, okay, that first class goes from 200 through 204, and the next class would have things as low as 205 through 209. But there's a couple mistakes that I would be making if I did that. First of all, egg weights are continuous, so it would be through less than 205, and then through less than 210. So whether you do through or through less than depends on if you have continuous or discrete data, so you need to go read the problem and think about that. And then the other thing is I didn't have any eggs that weighed this much. My eggs were much lighter. And there's clues up here in the notes to that. It says the leaf unit is 0.01. So that's not 1, but 0.01. So that's the hundredths place. So that 0 must be the tenths place, and the 2 would be the whole number. So that's really 2.00 through less than 2.05. I got to decode that from this note. And then 2.05 through 2.10, comma, dot, dot, dot. And then I'd want to think about what is that last one, and it looks like that would be 2.4. Let's see, that's the second line, so 2.45 through less than 2.50. So when you're writing out your class descriptions, make sure you think about, is it continuous or discrete, and make sure that you're thinking about any notes here that change this from whole numbers to decimal versions or large number versions, because that will happen sometimes. You want to make sure you get that right. And again, I'm not sure on the lettering. I guess this one is probably H and this is I, but double check that, make sure it matches up correctly with what your direction sheet says. Alright, I hope that was helpful with making those graphs and getting them into the report. Just make sure you're doing it all with the DVD battery durations instead of with the egg weights. This is just an example, but I hope it helped.